Welcome, everyone, to Rutgers at the Voice of College Football. If you like this show, hit that like and subscribe button. Coming off of a big win over Maryland, 31-17. Rutgers goes to 6-4 on the season as they get ready for Illinois. On this show, we're going to talk about Illinois, give you a prediction about whether Rutgers is going to beat Illinois, and talk about who the top 12 teams are in the country. But before we do that, there's something I'd like to say about Rutgers football and the state of Rutgers football at this point. We know that Rutgers started out 4-0. We know that Rutgers has historically been at the bottom of the conference that it's played in. Okay. They start out 4-0 this year. Then they lose 4 straight. They lose to Nebraska 14-7. They lose to Wisconsin 42-10. They lose to UCLA 35-32. And then they lose to USC 42-20. They come back with 2 straight victories, including the last one against Illinois. Last one against Maryland, 31-17. So Rutgers is 6-4. And after the Rutgers victory, I was watching Coach Schiano's press conference, and I was actually also watching another Rutgers show in which the panelists were celebrating Rutgers' victory over a 4-5 Maryland team and saying how pleased they were with the state of Rutgers football. Well, I'm going to take the opposite approach and tell you I'm not pleased at all. Because 6-4, while good, it's not good enough. Would Ohio State be happy with a 6-4 record? Would Georgia be happy with a 6-4 record? Okay. Would Alabama be happy with a 6-4 record? Would Ole Miss be happy with a 6-4 record? Would Texas be happy with a 6-4 record? I could go on and on and on. Okay. Hi, Dariel. Good to see you. The season so far hasn't met my expectations. No, it has not. Because 6-4, while good, just ain't good enough. And Rutgers, it's about time that we have higher standards and higher goals for our program. Coach Schiano is one of the best coaches in the country, and Coach Schiano is a great man who has turned around Rutgers not once, but twice. All right? But Rutgers deserves better than this. And I don't think we should be here celebrating a 6-4 season thus far. Okay? Now, on that other Rutgers show that I commented on, the panelists criticized me and said, "Oh, your expectations are too high. Just be happy that we won tonight and went to 6-4. Nonsense. My expectations are not too high. Yours are too low. 6-4 isn't good enough. Rutgers should be a nationally relevant program. Rutgers should be competing with the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Mississippis, the Texases. And they're not. And let me give you some context. When I grew up in New Jersey, and I love the Garden State, I grew up, in the mid to late 80s and went to high school in the early 90s at Bergen Catholic High School in Oradell, New Jersey. Bergen Catholic is one of the best programs in the state and has been nationally ranked year after year, just losing to IMG this year, 27-17. Now, when I was in high school, most of the great football players didn't go to Rutgers. They went to other schools, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska, Florida, Alabama. Why? Because they didn't respect the Rutgers program. They said Rutgers loses too much. Rutgers is always at the bottom end of the conference. Okay? And that was true. And thanks to Greg Schiano, and Coach, I say this sincerely, thanks to Greg Schiano, from 2001 to 2011, Rutgers was turned around because he did a fantastic job in coaching and recruiting. And we had some very good seasons. When Coach Schiano left, we went back to the bottom again, as is the history of the program. Okay? And then, after the horrible Chris Ash era, in which we were at the bottom of the Big Ten, which we've been historically, okay? Coach Schiano comes back on and is changing the program yet again. And in my opinion, should be considered for Coach of the Year. But to get to a point where you are going to compete with the Buckeyes, the Bulldogs, the Crimson Tide, all right, the Longhorns, you can't be celebrating 6-4. There's nothing to celebrate. All right, progress isn't good enough. Perfection is good enough. This team should be 8-2. This team should have never lost to Nebraska in Lincoln and should have not lost to UCLA. And the players should be held to a higher standard. Do you think Nick Saban would tolerate a 6-4 record? I don't care how poor Rutgers has been in the past. I don't care about the historical context. I care about right now. Would Bear Bryant be okay with this? Would Kalen DeBoer be okay with this? Would Lane Kiffin be okay with this? Would Steve Sarkisian be okay with this? No. So when I see other Rutgers shows and I see them celebrating and toasting to a 6-4 Rutgers, it makes me think that they are dedicated to one thing and one thing only, mediocrity. Well, that's not me, and that's not this show. Congratulations to the players on the victory over Maryland. Congratulations, they did do some very good things, and they deserve credit for that. But let me remind the players and Rutgers University that 6-4 is not going to cut it. Every year, Rutgers should be competing for a playoff spot, particularly because there's 12 teams in the playoff now. All right? The playoff committee has Boise State in there. Why shouldn't Rutgers be in there? Because we are suffering from low expectations and a resignation to mediocrity that has permeated this program since its inception. All right? Fans at Rutgers don't have high expectations because they are so tainted by the history of the program. What they don't realize is that Schiano turned that program around from 2001 to 2011 and had us playing on a nationally relevant level. Well, to get there again, Rutgers University, the football program, the athletic director, and the damn coach cannot be happy with a 6-4 record. It is unacceptable. And the only way that Rutgers is going to become a top 12 football team, the only way that Rutgers is going to be in the playoffs is if they start upping the standard for the players, for the program, for the fans. Now, you may disagree with me, and that's fine. I don't particularly care because I am sick and tired as a New Jersey native and someone who has cared about Rutgers his whole life, not only to see us underperforming, but to see us being happy with improved performance. I'll even quote Brian Kelly after the LSU-Alabama game in 2023 when he said, "We played good tonight. Good's not good enough." Same principle holds true here. Good's not good enough. 6-4 is not good enough. And in the future, next season, the season after, why don't you take a look at Curt Cignetti and Indiana? Indiana, a roster filled with 3-star players, 10-0, going into Columbus this weekend to face the Buckeyes. Likely going to have a playoff spot. Are the players in the roster in Indiana any better than Rutgers? Marginally at best. I would argue no. They're 10-0, we're 6-4. And I don't know about people, the people I know from New Jersey, we have high standards, and our standards are perfection, not improvement. Our standards are championships, not progress, okay? Our standards are beating the best, okay, not beating the average. So I do not join with other Rutgers shows and fans who are celebrating a victory over a sub-500 team. Now, how are we going to get better so that we are 8-2, 9-1, so that we get the attention of the playoff committee, and so that teams like Ohio State, Michigan, Indiana, Oregon start getting a little scared about playing us, especially in Piscataway? Well, I've said it before, and I will say it again. We need better players. It's that simple. You have great players coming out of Bergen Catholic High School in Oradell. You have great players coming out of Don Bosco in Ramsey. Where are they going? They're going to other Division I schools. They should be coming to Rutgers. You need to get more 4- and 5-star recruits. Currently, Rutgers has the 29th ranked recruiting class in the country. 29th, consisting of only 4 4-star players and 23 3-star players. Now, that's not to say that you cannot develop 3-star players. We see that with Iowa. Iowa has a history of developing 3-star players and competing at a high level. But they don't compete at the highest level. We don't want Rutgers to become the next Iowa. Rutgers needs to get better players. And how are you going to do that? Well, this goes back to Rutgers University and their commitment to the football program. We're in an era of NIL. And in NIL, you can buy players. That's precisely what we need to do with these kids coming out of high school. Okay? Bryce Underwood just got a $10.1 million offer from Michigan over 4 years. You know what Rutgers should do? Double it. Give them $20 million. Outbid the big schools. But to do that, you're going to have to dedicate the resources to doing that. And you're going to have to make a commitment to Rutgers being one of the best teams in the country. I'm not so sure that Rutgers University has made that commitment yet. They need to make that commitment. Coach Schiano deserves it. The players deserve it. The state of New Jersey deserves it. Buy the players. Spend the money. Because once you get 1, 2, 3, 5-star athletes, guess what? More are going to want to come. It's going to create a domino effect. You need more 5 stars and 4 stars. Number 2, you got to hit that transfer portal. Last I checked, Miller Moss was in the transfer portal. What is Rutgers doing to get Miller Moss? There's other players in the transfer portal who are pissed off that they didn't start at Alabama their freshman year, or at Ole Miss, or at Florida, or at Texas, or at Oregon. Go into the portal and get those players and spend the money. You have to get them. That's the only way you're going to be competitive, because there's only so much development that you can have. At the end of the day, talent is a prerequisite to successful development, both for being at the highest levels in college football and ultimately going on to the NFL. You need both. Right now, we have the coach. We love you, Coach Schiano. You're fantastic. All right, we can't wait to have you on the show, and you have done a fantastic job for this program. You got the coach, but you don't yet have the players. You have to buy the players. Then you have to buy them out of high school, and you have to buy them from the transfer portal. Next thing you need to do is, when they're there, you need to develop them. You need to make them into NFL stars, so that when you're on the recruiting trail, you can say to high school players, not only are you going to be financially secure by the time you get out of Rutgers, not only are you going to have a great academic degree, you're going to have a future in the NFL and be a better player and a better person for having gone to Rutgers. It's time to make Rutgers' brand compete with the Ohio States. And the idea, as I saw on other shows, that Rutgers fans are happy with a win over Maryland and happy with a victory with a 6-4 record, not me. Not me. I have higher expectations, and so should the program. And if students, administrators, and fans of Rutgers are going to be happy with a 6-4 record, then the future for Rutgers will not be successful. It'll be more of the same, and it will plateau. So, I really don't have much more to say about it. Yes, I congratulate the players on their effort. They've worked hard all season, fought through injuries, and they deserve credit for that. I'm proud of them. But 6-4, while good, is not good enough. We need better players. We need to buy them. We need to develop them. And we need to create a track record of putting those players in the NFL and making them better players and better people. That's the ingredient to take Rutgers not only to the top of the Big Ten, but to make Rutgers a national championship contender. So I'd love to hear your comments about regarding my thoughts. The link is in the chat. Feel free to call in. But as a New Jersey native, I can tell you, we're not satisfied with being good. We always strive for perfection. What I would have liked to have heard from Coach Schiano after Maryland and today in his presser for Illinois is that, we're 6-4, but I'm not happy about it. I'll never be happy with 6-4. I want to win every game. And 6-4 is not good enough. I didn't hear that. We need to expect more, and we need to be more as a team. All right, so Illinois, noon on Saturday in Piscataway, the Illinois Fighting Illini. Illinois presents a much bigger challenge than the Maryland Terrapins. 7-3 overall are the Illini. 4-3 in the Big Ten, 6-1 at home, and 1-2 on the road. So how's Illinois done so far? Well, I'll tell you, Illinois, they're good, but they're not great, and they are beatable. 45-0, they opened up with a victory against Eastern Illinois. Defeated Kansas next week, 23-17. 30-9 victory over Central Michigan. Then defeated Dylan Raiola and the Nebraska Cornhuskers 31-24. And then their first loss coming against the number 4 ranked Nittany Lions 21-7. And then they have a 50-49 victory over Purdue in overtime. Defeat the Michigan Wolverines, who obviously have a quarterback problem, 21-7. Lose to Oregon 38-9, an Oregon team that struggled mightily against Wisconsin this past weekend at Camp Randall, and defeat Minnesota, and then lose to Minnesota 25-17, a Minnesota team that beat USC and that is having a fairly good year, and then a victory over Michigan State 38-16. So, is Illinois beatable? Absolutely. Does Rutgers have to beat them? You're damn right. They need to go to 7-4. It's not enough to say we're bowl eligible. Again, on another Rutgers show I was watching, they were celebrating how Rutgers is bowl eligible. Who cares? What they should be talking about is whether Rutgers is playoff eligible. What they should be talking about is what Indiana is talking about right now, which is we're going to go into the Horseshoe in Columbus and we're going to knock off the Buckeyes. Instead, we're celebrating they're bowl eligible. Not good enough. So, Illinois, let's get into a bit more of the details. Luke Altmaier, quarterback for Illinois, 176 completions out of 282 attempts, 2,124 yards for a 62.4 completion percentage, 18 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Luke Altmaier, great quarterback. The running backs, it's kind of like a running game by committee. Josh McCray, 80 carries, 391 yards with a 4.9 average, 7 touchdowns. Aiden Laffery, 63 carries, 324 yards, 5.1 average. And Caden Fegan, 61 carries, 306 yards, 4.6 average, and 3 touchdowns. Illinois has 2 standout receivers. Zachariah Franklin, 48 receptions, 515 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Pat Bryant, 43 receptions, 717 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And on the defensive side, Matthew Bailey leads the Illini defensive back with 62 tackles and an interception. Dylan Roziak, 60 tackles. He's a linebacker. And Gabe Jackas, 57 tackles. So Illinois is a pretty good, well-rounded team. And at the press conference today, Coach Greg Schiano emphasized that fact, saying Illinois, they're going to have their hands full. Very well-rounded team. And he praised the team for making strides in developing, but said even a momentary lapse is going to take them back to the mediocrity that they're trying so desperately to avoid. He said, we are a developing program on the rise. That's correct. But we need to keep developing. And that's right. You need to keep developing the way that Alabama developed in 2007 when Nick Saban took over a program that was a 500 program and subsequently over the next 15 years took it to 6 national championships. It begins with the standard. Rutgers, You need a change of culture and a change of philosophy. I'm saying this to the university and the administrators. You have to commit to being the best. And that means not celebrating 6-4. That means learning your lessons from the loss to Nebraska, loss to UCLA, and committing the resources to become one of the best teams in the country. Saturday is also Senior Day. Senior Day at Rutgers and Piscataway. Great day for the seniors. This class was the class that came to Rutgers during COVID-19 when Rutgers was one of the worst teams in college football. These kids believed in Rutgers. These kids worked hard. These kids achieved a lot, and they deserve to be celebrated on Senior Day from taking Rutgers from the bottom of the conference finally to bowl eligibility. And while we shouldn't celebrate it, we should celebrate that these kids have built a foundation for Rutgers, that if we have the right standard, the right approach, and are striving for perfection and dedicate the resources to it, this team's foundation will allow us to get there. So congratulations to all the seniors and to what they've accomplished. So, my prediction for Illinois. Well, every game seems to be a turning point for Rutgers, doesn't it? 4-0. Then they lose 4 straight. They bounce back 5-4. Now they're 6-4. And they've done that despite injuries, a lot of injuries. Despite a cross-country trip to USC, where Kyle Monangai got injured and finally was back in action last week. The prediction for Illinois starts with the expectation. The expectation among the players, their mindset, the culture in that locker room should be that we have to win this game. We have to win this game. 6-5 doesn't work. 6-5 makes people think of the Rutgers of old. 7-4 makes them think of the Rutgers of new and the possibilities that the future will hold. They must win this game. And it begins with great defense. Okay, Rutgers' defense against Maryland was outstanding. Had a critical interception, dominated the line of scrimmage. Starts with that defense. Flip Dixon, starring at defensive back for the Scarlet Knights, has had a great year. The defense has been a cohesive unit, one to contend with, and they need to play their best game on Saturday to beat Illinois. On offense, Kyle Monangai. He has a future in the NFL. One of the best running backs I've seen at Rutgers. Antoine Raymond, another great running back. They need to run the ball. The offensive line needs to have their best game. And Ethan Kaliakmanis, you need to be consistent. You have a great arm. Okay, you can be very accurate, but you can also be inaccurate and make bad decisions. Consistency, and efficiency on offense with a great defensive performance will win this game. I'm going to predict Rutgers defeats Illinois 24-20 on Saturday in Piscataway. Now, I know there's some people who are going to disagree with me and think I have way too high expectations for Rutgers and that I should be happy with simply a 6-4 record because it's better than it was in the past. Well, that's fine if you disagree. I don't particularly care. Because when I'm looking at other Rutgers shows and I'm seeing people celebrating and drinking champagne over a victory over a 4-5 Maryland team, it doesn't make me happy. That makes me think you are resigned to and approving of mediocrity. The fans need to demand more. Rutgers needs to devote more to becoming a great program. Coach Schiano, of all people, deserves that because he is the best coach in the history of Rutgers football. We're going to end tonight with, given the chaos in college football, we're going to end tonight with my rankings of the top 12 teams in the country. And my rankings are obviously going to be controversial. Why? Because I have one criteria, and only one. Who are the best teams in the country? Who are the best teams? I look beyond record. So many people focus on a team's record. Well, this team is undefeated and that team has 1 or 2 losses. Well, look at the strength of schedule. Look at who these teams are playing. You're telling me if Indiana played in the SEC, they'd be undefeated? Really? How would Boise State play? What would their record be if they were in the Big Ten? So I think that you have to go beyond the record and look underneath to the nuances so that you can really determine who the best teams are. Sometimes the best teams may not have the best records, but they have the best talent, and they are the best team now. A lot of people talk about how, well, the season should matter, and you have to look at how the teams did over the course of a season. Well, that depends on how you define the word matter and how you define the word over the course of a season. If you define over the course of a season as looking at the team's entire body of work, wins and losses over the season, that may lead you to one conclusion. If you define over the course of a season as emphasizing the upward trajectory of a team and how well a team is doing in the final weeks of the season, that leads you to a different conclusion. I would submit that the latter conclusion leads you to identify the best teams. So yes, the season should matter, but what I define as mattering is what is the trajectory of a team over the course of a season, instead of looking at the entire record and penalizing a team because they lost 3 months ago by 2 points, or they lost 2 months ago by 4 points to an unranked team. Teams evolve. Teams change. At the end of the year, teams are not the same as they were at the beginning of the year. And you have to look at who are the best teams. And you cannot convincingly argue that the best team is the team with the best record over the course of a season. Over the course of a season neglects to consider the trajectory and improvement and evolution of a team. I take the latter approach, and that's why the rankings I have, while many will disagree with them, reflect my belief based on objective data and based on that trajectory of who those 12 are. Number one. I went to law school in Columbus, Ohio, and one thing I was shocked at was how good the restaurants are. There's a place, there's something in Columbus called German Village in Short North. Great restaurants, great people. On Saturday, it's a very lively atmosphere. The Ohio State Buckeyes are the number one team in the United States. I don't care that they lost by 1 second in Outson Stadium, that rowdy, noisy, place where the fans are so close to the field that the decibel level is through the roof. They lost by 1 second. Will Howard slides 1 second earlier. They kicked the field goal and win. They look like the better team. They are the better team. The Buckeyes are number one. Number two, when I was deciding where to get a master's degree, I looked at different colleges throughout the country, and I said, you know what? I want to go to a school that has an awesome football program, a traditional football program. I want to go somewhere in the country that's very different from New Jersey. Interesting, I fell in love with Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Nick Saban, and the Crimson Tide. Alabama is the number 2 team in the country. Now, I know people are going to think I'm crazy. Oh, they lost to Tennessee. I see. Okay. Oh, they lost to Vanderbilt. Yeah, that was then. This is now. Look at what they did to LSU. Milroe, 4 touchdowns, 190 yards. The defense hasn't allowed a touchdown or has allowed 1 touchdown, in the last 12 quarters? Kane Womack's defense, his swarm defense, is coming together. And they are a cohesive and dangerous unit. You combine that with an offensive line that has about 3 NFL players on there, and Jalen Milroe, who is so explosive and unpredictable that he forces defenses to adjust to his running capabilities and his ability to create when plays break down, plus a running room with Justice Haynes and Jam Miller. You have an Alabama team that can beat anybody in the country. Alabama is number 2. Number 3. This was a hard pick because my confidence level in it is not that high. Why is that? Because when the Texas Longhorns played the Georgia Bulldogs, they looked weak. They looked completely outmatched. But you can't deny that Texas has a great roster, a great coach, great quarterback in Quinn Ewers, and the potential to defeat anybody, as we saw in that beatdown of Florida, a Florida team that beat LSU on Saturday. Texas Longhorns, number 3. Number four. I only visited Oregon once. I didn't like it because there were too many trees. But I have to say there were some beautiful parts of Oregon, and Eugene, Oregon is one of them. The Oregon Ducks. The Ducks are number 4. Why are they number 4? Because before Wisconsin, they did not have a quality win on the road. Their schedule has been very favorable to them this year. They went to Camp Randall. They won 16-13. And if Wisconsin wasn't so inept on offense, they may have lost. Oregon was exposed at Camp Randall. Oregon is going to get beat. Oregon is the same old Oregon. Oregon is number 4. Number 5. This was an easy pick. When Lane Kiffin got fired at USC on the tarmac, it was one of the most disgraceful ways to fire a coach. It's wonderful to see how he's come back with a vengeance. Ole Miss dominated Georgia in the trenches. And the way that Ole Miss has played in the trenches with that dominant defensive line, great quarterback in Jackson Dart, great wide receivers. They are the most complete Ole Miss team in years. A dangerous team that, like Alabama, can beat anyone. Ole Miss is number 5. Number 6, I never did like teams with bad defenses. And I really would not pick this team except for the fact that it has an amazing quarterback and offense. Number 6, Miami Hurricanes. Cam Ward is a stud. That offense is tough to defend, and any team in the country is going to struggle to defend them. The problem is their defense. And ultimately, I think that's going to be Miami's downfall. But for now, Miami's number 6. Number 7. After a difficult stretch, Athens, Georgia seems again like a vibrant college town. The Georgia Bulldogs bounced back with a 31-17 victory over the Volunteers of Tennessee. Carson Beck finally got back on track. And Georgia, their running backs are still injured. They still have some injuries on defense, but they will get healthy. And when they are fully healthy, they're one of the best teams in the country. Right now, Georgia's number 7. Number 8, we go back to Unhappy Valley, Penn State. To me, it looks like the same old Penn State this year. Great defense. Very disciplined on defense. Cohesive unit. But the offense just isn't there. Drew Aller, he's good. Not good enough. And we saw that against Ohio State. Okay? Ohio State spotted Penn State 10 points. Was up 10-0 in the first quarter, scored 3 points the rest of the way. Why? Because it's the same old Penn State offense. And the same old Penn State offense, no matter how good the defense, leads to the same old results. They'll lose in the playoffs. Number 9. I should have put Northern Illinois at number 9 because Northern Illinois beat this team that's number 9, Notre Dame. Notre Dame is creeping back in there. I'm still not sold on Notre Dame. I was sold on them earlier in the year, but after the NIU loss, not so much. But they've got a defense. All right? They've got a defense. All right? And they're efficient enough on offense where if they click on all cylinders, they can surprise a lot of teams. Don't count out the Irish. Number 10. When I was young, I used to love Bobby Knight and Indiana basketball. Never did I think I would ever be rooting for Indiana football. Well, we certainly are this year with Signetti and the Indiana Hoosiers. This team is disciplined. This team plays as a team. This team is tough. And even though they've had an easy schedule, okay, they are for real. They will be competitive in Columbus. Will they win? Probably not. We're going to see who the real Indiana is on Saturday. But they've had a remarkable season and come in at number 10. Number 11, the pick that everyone's going to criticize. Everyone's going to say I'm crazy. I don't make any sense. Well, last year was the first year I've visited most states. There was one state I haven't visited. Well, there's a couple, but the one state I hadn't visited, I visited last year. Columbia, South Carolina. It was quite nice. University of South Carolina, pretty nice campus, nice restaurants, and a football team this year that is one of the hottest teams in football, and a team that Tim Tebow even said nobody wants to play right now. You're damn right. Nobody wants to play South Carolina. Now, people may say, oh, they had 3 losses. Give me a break. They had 3 losses earlier in the season, so you're going to penalize them for that and negate the fact that they have had 4 straight victories, including over teams like Texas A&M. And who else did they beat? Think about it. They have beaten 4 very good teams in a row, only lost by 2 to Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and had the ball at the 50-yard line with 30 seconds left. South Carolina is dangerous. South Carolina is for real. Number 11. Number 12, unfortunately, I had to choose a team at number 12, even though I didn't want to, because I don't believe that we should have a 12-team playoff, because I don't think any of the teams outside of the top 5 are going to compete for a national championship. But if I must, Boise State. And I'll tell you something. Boise State, what a beautiful football field with that blue turf. You know, Boise, Idaho, very beautiful area of the country. But it will be a very unhappy area of the country when Boise State, should they make the playoffs, bows out in their first playoff game. So, my top 12, Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, Oregon, Ole Miss, Miami, Georgia, Penn State, Notre Dame, Indiana, South Carolina, Boise State. If you disagree, I'd love to hear your comments in the comments section. Okay? Put forth an argument. Don't just say, your rankings suck. Oh, that's really nice. Give me an argument, some facts, some logic. Or, dare I say, call in and have a discussion. We're going to see some chaos in college football over the next few weeks. And right now, I'm going with South Carolina. South Carolina should be a playoff team. They can beat anybody. Alabama right now can beat anybody. Ole Miss can beat anybody. Can't say the same for Oregon. Can't say the same for any other team but Ohio State. So what are we going to see ultimately in the national championship game? Well, I think Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, Oregon, and Ole Miss and Georgia. Those 6 teams are the ones who have a chance. In the end, Ohio State, Alabama. But we'll see. Rutgers, congratulations on the latest win. You will defeat Illinois and go to 7-4. And then it's on to East Lansing. We'll be here live on Saturday for the post-game show, welcoming your calls. And once again, next Monday at 7 p.m. If you've liked this show, please hit that like and subscribe button. We will see you on Saturday after the game. Have a great evening.